I came out on Monday. No, was it Monday? Yeah, Monday. Man, this has been kind of a busy, hectic, weird week. Monday. Yes. I had something booked for Monday morning. So I picked up Monday morning out of Cleveland, or no, Massillon, Ohio, and went up to Michigan, like 294 miles. And when I got up there, I was about 20 miles away from the delivery, and I had the same issue that I had up in Maine. For any of you that don't follow the channel, don't know what I'm talking about, last week on my way to Maine, I was about 20 miles short of the delivery. No, actually I was about 100 miles short. And I had the ABS light, well, the traction control light come on initially, and it put me into limp mode and said engine fault, service engine soon. Pulled it over, let it sit for a minute, checked everything, let it sit for a minute, took off, and did it about 3 more times. On the third time, though, the check engine light came on with it. So I got it to an auto zone, and it came up with a throttle body code, P2112 throttle body. So I replaced the throttle body there at the auto zone. Was able to make the rest of the trip, got home, went on the load on Monday, drove about a total of 1,200 miles, no issues. Then I got the issue again. When it came on, when it put me in limp mode the first time, happened 2 times. First time it put me into limp mode, no lights, just the engine fault. So pulled it over, checked everything, started back up, took off, gauge into cruise, shut down. This time just lit up like crazy. I had the check engine light came on, I had the traction control light, I had the ABS light, and I had the eye was lit up for information, and the information was letting me know that my hill assist was not available. So all those things happened at once. Got myself delivered, went to an AutoZone, came up with the same code, P2112. It had a secondary code, which was P016B, I believe, which was just some kind of generic secondary code. So I got under the rear, was looking at both of the wheel sensors, the speed sensors that go into the hub in the rear. Didn't see anything, visibly that was wrong. I even on the driver's side, because when you get under one of these transits, on the passenger side, for whatever reason, there's a covering of the wires to the speed sensor all the way to the sensor where it goes into the hub. On the driver's side, for whatever reason, about 2 inches, there's no covering. It's just 2 wires. They're not bare. They have their own individual covering, but there's no main covering insulation around it as on the passenger side. So I was looking at it. I didn't see anything. Once again, I didn't see anything visibly. So I did take my little air gun, and I basically just kind of blew it all out, kind of trying to dry it off, because both times this has happened to me, up in Maine and in Michigan, it was raining. So I'm thinking, okay, a sensor maybe is the wire's getting wet or something. So tried drying it off, checked the lights were still on, so that didn't fix anything. Talked to my service guy, and on these Fords, if you don't get the there's like an aftermarket deal to help channel the water away from your air filter. And so I took the air filter out just to make sure it wasn't wet or anything. Just looked around underneath the hood, didn't see anything. So I just went ahead and was like, okay, I'm going to try and get back to the house. Well, I did try to find a Ford dealer in Kalamazoo. Nobody had any available appointments until December 8th. So I'm not going to sit up there and wait for December 8th, obviously. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and see how far I can get to the house, or, however long, whatever. So drove back to the house. Now, in the back of my mind, if you recall, when I just mentioned, I was talking about the cruise control, and I mentioned that purposely because that cruise being engaged and these things happening was in the back of my mind. So I drove all the way home without using cruise. and I made it all the way. And I got about a mile short of the dealership, and I'm like, I'm gonna try this cruise control because I need to find out if there's anything, that has to do with the cruise that's causing this. Engaged the cruise, immediately, boom, thing went into limp mode, shut down, pulled over, let it sit, started back up, and then got it to the dealership. So, left the van at the dealership calls me the next day. They said they weren't reading any throttle body code, so obviously for whatever did, it cleared itself overnight or something, being cool. I don't know why it did that. So they said it was just the wheel sensors, which they came up with codes C0037 and C0036, ABS traction control codes. So, I talked to the service guy. I'm like, just want you to understand, when I engage into cruise, it was shutting it off. I just want to be sure that, there's nothing else going on. I want to, have you guys had this happen? Does any of your techs aware of this happening before? And mind you, the day before when I was at AutoZone in Michigan talking to the service guy, I had said to him that I thought this was all pertaining to the ABS issue. And he's just like, he's thinking because of the throttle body stuff, the throttle body code, that it shouldn't do that. It shouldn't throw a check engine code due to the ABS stuff. And for whatever reason, these vans are just weird. With 2 instances now that I've had something kind of like this going on, it's just, if you pay attention to your vehicle and you kind of have some basic understanding of vehicles, you'll know that there's just what something is probably the problem. You know what I'm saying? You may not be able to pinpoint it, but you got a general idea that something's causing something else. So, and I told him, I think it's got to do with the ABS. He's like, well, just get it here, we'll check it out. And so, ended up being the ABS. So far, they changed that wheel sensor. What they said is there's some, like a gear almost like that's got teeth on the inside of the hub that works with that wheel sensor for the ABS and traction control and all of that. He said some teeth were missing on it. So they replaced that, which that bill ended up coming up to be like $342, which I was able to cover with points that I had from previous repairs and just purchases by using my Ford Visa rewards card. I get, Ford points off of that. So so far that's that. I've only ran, when I say only, I've ran about another 1,400 miles, and knock on wood, so far no issues. So hopefully that's that. Just real quick, when I mentioned about like weird issues, because if you go back into a couple of years ago, I had a video talking about where I was getting a misfire and I thought I was having some transmission issues, and took it to several shops. They couldn't figure anything out with the transmission, and so they basically, everybody was saying, hey, let it just keep getting worse, and then when it gets bad enough to where we can drive it and see the issue, see the symptoms, then bring it back in. So when that got to that point, it was causing a misfire. So I took it into one shop. It comes up with a misfire on the cylinder. They replaced the plug, they replaced the coil, the ignition coil. I get about 300 miles down the road, I start feeling a hesitation again, because that's what I was getting. I was getting not really a miss or a hesitation or a slip, just a weird kind of, at about 55 to 65, right in that, if you're under acceleration, you just feel it, okay? I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, so then it just got to the point where it caused a misfire. So anyhow, got down and it started doing that again. Take it to another shop, because it was the same thing. I went through the same routine. Can't diagnose it because the symptoms weren't acting up. It was only acting up under certain conditions. And so again, got to the point to where it was acting up on it all the time, and it caused another misfire. And this time, the first time I was out in Arizona at a Ford dealer. This time I was in Arkansas at a Ford dealer, and I'm telling the guys, like, I think this has got to do with the issue that I'm having with the hesitation, the slipping or whatever. I think it's got to do something to do with the transmission. He's like, no, there's just no way it's going to cause a misfire. And it doesn't make sense to me still. I'm not a mechanic by any stretch, but it still doesn't make sense to me how it would cause a misfire. So anyhow, they fixed that. He's like, I promise you this is going to take care of it. Same thing, got a few hundred miles down the road after they replaced a plug in a coil on a certain cylinder that the misfire was on, and had the same freaking thing. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to the dealership. I'm going to get the transmission flushed. Got the transmission flushed. That remedied the problem altogether for about 40,000 miles. So then I was like, I'm going to go ahead and get the filter and everything replaced, which unfortunately on these Ford Transits, one of the biggest things that I hate about these Transits, which I love the Transits overall, but this is one thing I hate, is that you can't easily replace the fluid and the filter on these for the transmission. You got to drop the cross members and all this other bullshit, and there's some bushing bolts that end up seizing up and all this. It's a lot of labor. So it's like a $700 and some job to do something that should only be $100 or so. So anyhow, I went ahead and paid it to get that done because that's what I felt like the issue was. And sure as shit, once I did that, didn't have the problem again, ever. Transmission went out, I think at like maybe 200 and some odd thousand miles later. It was like, or no, maybe a little bit longer. The engine went out at 420 something. The transmission went out at like around 600,000. So, yeah, it's just odd how there's a couple of things that are causing, like with the throttle body or the misfire, that's not related to those things. So it's kind of weird how those are working together. So just for what it's worth, trying to just tell you guys about these things, so in case somebody has come across that issue or is currently coming across something like that, just be mindful, man. Just some of this stuff isn't as big a deal. Like with this, it sucks to break down, but luckily it wasn't super expensive, which I guess kind of why I'm talking about all this stuff is to talk about what seems to be overlooked. Not that nobody ever mentions it, it's just that when people do mention it, you guys that are watching these videos and then want to get into this industry, I think a lot of people just overlook because it's not what they want to hear, which is the breakdowns. Like, and I've said it before, like, no matter what, no matter how well you do things, you're going to break down. Like, that is something you're not going to get away from in this industry. Getting in this job, you will not get away with not having a breakdown. It's just going to happen. It's part of the game. It's part of the industry. It's just what's going to happen. So you've got to be prepared for that. So many people are unprepared for a major breakdown. I mean, there's many people that aren't prepared for a minor breakdown, let alone a major breakdown. Me myself, I haven't been disciplined with my money enough to not be basically bubble gumming and zip tying, my finances together to fix certain things, and I shouldn't. I make plenty enough money that I shouldn't be doing, but I'm undisciplined. I'm not disciplined with my finances to where I do what I need to do all the time. So just that's what you really have to be mindful of. Now, which this takes me back to like when I first was buying a van, when I first went off on my own after driving for a fleet owner. One of the biggest things I considered, and it wasn't like nobody told me this, to me it was just common sense. Like, I know what my finances are, and I know there's going to be breakdowns. I guess that's one thing I had maybe over most people's, that I know that this is a part of the game before I ever even got into the vans, because my dad was a truck driver all my life, and it was constantly repairs on the big trucks. It's just part of the game. So when I was looking for a van, and this kind of ties into any of you guys looking for a van, a little bit of information on this, look for something that if it breaks down, you've got the ability to fix it without it putting you out of business. At the time, and I've said this story over before, but for those of you who've never heard it before, Sprinters were the only large vans in the game when I first got into it 10 years ago. There was the Chevy Expresses, there was the box vans, the cube vans, but as far as a Sprinter was the only one that had the high top extended type van, Sprinter style. So, and they were expensive, and they're expensive to fix. They're diesel and they're Mercedes, and they're just expensive. So that's what steered me away from that, because just normal stuff happening with a Sprinter was extremely expensive. So I didn't want to mess with that. And then you had your Expresses, your box vans, and your Ford Econolines. I didn't want to do the box vans just because the fuel mileage was so horrible. So I was down to the Chevy Express and the Econoline. And I actually wanted a Chevy Express because they had the longer wheelbase. The Ford Econoline has a lot of ass that hangs behind it. So I actually told the dealership I wanted a Chevy Express. And a funny story, I've told it before, but he calls me. He's like, "Yeah, I got you a van. Come check it out and everything." I get there, takes me outside. He's all happy, showing me the van, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's a nice van." I said, "But this is a Ford. I asked you for a Chevy." So that's how I started off getting a Ford. I didn't choose a Ford. I mean, I'm glad that happened, because I'll be honest, those Econolines, those E350s, those things with the 5.4s, those things are tanks. Those things are just great, reliable vehicles. They don't cost a ton to fix. Parts are readily available for the most part. So it was a blessing in disguise that he messed that up. Because, through talking with other drivers, those Chevy Expresses transmissions seemed to go out pretty consistently. Engines were not the greatest. Now, some people say, "Hey, I got a Chevy Express. It's the best thing I ever had." It might be. I'm just telling you what I come across and what I've had experience-wise with my Econoline. Knock on wood again, I've currently got, I think it's almost 900,000 original miles on the Econoline I got running still. The one that I traded in had 772,000 on the original tranny, original engine when I traded it in. They're just beast of a van. And they're not extremely expensive. So that's something just to look into, is like, what can you afford? Worst case scenario happens. You break down or engine goes. Can you afford to fix it? How easy is it going to be to fix? How available are the parts? How available are the shops? How reasonable are the shop prices? All of those things should come into consideration when you're buying your van, if you're looking into a van. So just trying to tie all this into it. But the main theme is understand repairs, breakdowns are going to happen. Be prepared, and if you're prepared, you'll get through it. If you're not prepared, you're going to be like, man, I don't know why I got into this industry. So again, all this stuff is common sense, and it's on you as an individual. It's on you. Like the majority of what comes into whether you're going to be successful or not is you. How prepared and knowledgeable and understanding, and how flexible you are, and everything. Just everything, the majority of everything is going to come down to you. So, and I'm going to touch on this in another video, but I'm just going to kind of end it on this. I'm also trying to accentuate this because, man, is there a lot of guys on TikTok and YouTube that are just, it's almost like people that, it's like food pictures, I guess, trying to give you the best picture of this food to make it so enticing. And that's what so many guys, especially on TikTok, I see, are trying to make this industry out to seem like it's just so delicious. Come and get you a bite of this delicious industry. And then you get out here and you find out when you go to McDonald's or something, you see the picture on a billboard or something, it looks like a nice big meaty sandwich. You get it when you open your box, it's a freaking flat ass piece of burger, bun, lettuce, and tomato, every freaking spread out all over your box and shit. So it's just, it's not as good as what people make it out to be. It's as good as you can make it be, as far as how you adjust and adapt to the lifestyle and how much you like this industry. That's kind of the main thing. Money's there, solid money, but it's not as beautiful as these guys on TikTok and some of these YouTubers are making it out to be. And if I've ever made it seem like that, shame on me, because there's a lot of ups and downs in this industry. The ups are way up and the downs are way down, man. So just be mindful. Just again, I'm going to talk about this in another video, as far as trying to be mindful of those other things. But this is the reality. One last point Well, one last bit of information. Like with my Econoline, that thing's older, thing's got a lot of miles on it, and I've had to sink a lot of money into it the past few months, past 3 months. So the past 3 months, I've pretty much just broken even on that van because of repairs and whatnot. Like I've currently got it going in this coming week to get catalytic converters and O2 sensors on it. And unfortunately, catalytic converters on these vans is just like, god damn, I don't know if they're made of gold or what, but you know, it's super expensive. You used to be able to get simple universal catalytic converters, get them cut out, get new ones put in, no big deal. Now it's like they want to replace every fucking thing, all the pipe, all the fucking, just everything. It's super expensive. So, but I've had that done, just heat issues, new tires, and you know, it's like over $1,000 for a set of tires. So it's just been money after money. So I've just kind of broke even because, and so since the repairs being done, he's not running as much. So you know, you're not making as much. But overall, I've made solid money. So don't take this like there's no money in it or I'm bitching about it. It's just letting you understand you're going to come into these times when shit is just basically breaking even or you're working in the red. Just another example. These are things that happen. Like I've been having a few breakdowns. It's just nothing major, just little shit. But what hurts more than some of these small repairs is just the time you're not running. That's the biggest thing. It's not so much the money that you're having to spend on this stuff. It's the money you're missing out on while you're fixing these things and spending the money. So be mindful. Again, I know I keep repeating it. Be mindful. It's just I've been seeing a lot of it. I see several people on Facebook and in comments, oh, this is something people don't talk about. It's talked about. You guys just don't listen to it, man. Like, you guys got to listen to it. It's out there. It's being seen. Because everybody goes through it, and when they go through it, they're you know, majority of them are usually crying the blues. So you just got to open up and pay attention. Quit only hearing this bullshit about all this money and how great it is out here. You know, listen to all of it. All of it. Okay? All of it. All right, guys. I didn't even give you an update on what's going on. That's going to have to be another video because I was rambling and rambling. But I'm out, man. I'll holler at you guys later.